The finals is plagued with funky sounding AI, a bunch of gamers get creative for Halloween, and the guy who co-composed this is let go from Bungie. I'm Ash Dixon, happy Halloween, and welcome to GINX News. Despite 2023 being a fantastic year for games, sadly for those making them, it's been a whole other story. We've seen record amounts of layoffs this year, and it seems developer Bungie is the latest addition. An undisclosed number of staff have been let go, and it seems to be part of a wider restructuring at parent company Sony, and going by the increasing number of employees taken to social media, it seems to be a sizable chunk. And don't get me wrong, it's awful when anyone loses their job, but what baffled me is that long-time composer Michael Salvatore is reportedly on the list. Now that name might not be immediately familiar, but alongside Martin O'Donnell, he co-composed multiple soundtracks for Halo and Destiny. In fact, he's been making music for Bungie since the days of Myth, The Fallen Lords, all the way back in 1997. And I'm sorry, but if you were part responsible for the soundtrack of Halo, one of the most iconic in video game history, you just deserve job security for life. Just saying. Now this one genuinely baffles me to the point where I doubted if it was true. The rumour appeared first from VFX animator Carson Reed saying it came from an internal source, but then following several reports, Salvatore's own homepage was updated, scrubbing off all references to Destiny: The Final Shape and leaving behind just the text "Gone fishing," smiley face. And as if things weren't bad enough, Bungie has also been hit by delays. The Final Shape, which is the upcoming expansion for Destiny 2, has been delayed until June. It was originally meant to launch in February. Meanwhile, Bungie's next game, Marathon, has been pushed back to 2025. Overall, it paints a pretty bleak picture for the studio and adds to the industry's already stained tapestry of layoffs this year. Let's hope we don't hear of any more layoffs for a while. It was only recently on this show that we spoke about the open beta for the upcoming FPS The Finals. The fast-paced free-to-play shooter looks rather promising, though it's already landed in some hot water over its use of AI voiceovers. It was revealed in a podcast episode of Meet the Makers by creators Embark Studios. In it, audio designers Carl Strandberg and Andreas Almstrom were asked, who did the voiceovers? They sound really authentic. Spoiler alert, this is possibly the most weighted scripted question of all time. But either way, they replied, we use AI with a few exceptions, so all the contestant voices like the barks and voiceover commentators are AI text-to-speech. They continued, the reason that we went this route is that AI text-to-speech is finally extremely powerful. It gets us far enough in terms of quality and allows us to be extremely reactive to new ideas. If a game designer comes up with a new idea for a game mode, we can have a voiceover representing that in just a matter of hours instead of months. And right now you're all probably super curious what it actually sounds like. Well, want to play a game? Have a listen and tell me if you can tell if it's AI.
The Kingfish suffered a wipeout.
I guess the competition didn't have bigger fish to fry after all, Scotty.
Precisely what I had in mind. The Kingfish are back. Team respond.
Oh, well, funnily enough, authentic is not the word that sprang to my mind. In fact, the cadence and articulation is just so soulless that it's got me seriously concerned that they think this gets them far enough in terms of quality. That must be a very low bar. And look, the use of AI voices is already a thorny subject, but if this is the hill you're gonna die on, at least make sure it sounds good first. As you can imagine, voice actors in particular have spoken up about this. Zane Shacht tweeted out, why the f do AI voice people act like hiring voice actors is some kind of arcane ritual? I've knocked out entire games worth of audio in a 2-hour session. It ain't deep. And look, there's always going to be a proportion of gamers who just don't care where the voices come from, but personally, I think they should. Not only is the technology clearly not there yet, but video game execs aren't the only people who care more about their bottom line than their staff or consumers. AI is going to change our economic landscape in unfathomable ways, and if we don't take a stand now, then it will just be far too late. First I came for the voice actors, and I did not speak, for I was not a voice actor. Now, you're probably thinking, why so serious from the guy literally dressed as a clown? But it's just a shame because the game itself looks like a blast, so come on Embark, just do the right thing, make the game better, and just hire some goddamn voice actors. As it's Halloween, we've got to speak about at least one horror game. The story producer of the Dead Space trilogy has said that he would redo Dead Space 3 almost completely if he was given the opportunity. The third game was the worst reviewed of the three, sitting at a low but still kinda respectable 78 on Metacritic, but compared to the original's 89 and the sequel's 90, it's no understatement to say that it was a disappointment. Well, it looks like Chuck Beaver, stop it, has similar reservations as the critics did. On the Captain Bribbo podcast, he was asked what he would do if he was given the chance to go back and do it over. Beaver said, Now in this remake territory, I would redo Dead Space 3 almost completely, but I would keep the lore beat it's predicated on, keep the lore you find out, and I would have Ellie there but in a different relationship with Isaac and redo the entire main story. He also said that he would remove the love triangle between Isaac, Ellie and Robert and start from complete scratch. But one thing that stood out to me was when he was asked why Dead Space 3 wasn't as successful as the first two games. He said, "There's a return on investment number that has to be hit, so there were some calculated risks that we all made that we thought would do it. And it didn't work out. The plan was that we would expand into other gameplay genres and stuff, and I think those bits together not only didn't generate a new audience, they lost the old audience." Which suggests that not only was his artistic vision compromised to facilitate sales, but also that devs Motive Studio, possibly at the behest of EA, tried to do too much to make it more appealing to a mainstream audience. Now, I don't know about you, but when the story producer of two very successful games wants to run with his idea, isn't it wise to, you know, just let him do his thing? It's something we've seen time and time again with other franchises. Fear, Resident Evil, and of course Dead Space all try to introduce cooperative elements to their later games, which is fine, but not at the expense of the series' identity. I should stress that there are currently zero plans to redo or reimagine or remake Dead Space 3, but if they do, I'm sure Beaver will have his say on how to do it. It's time for my favourite part of the show, the part where I scour the deepest, darkest parts of the internet for some of the most imaginative fan creations. But today is a very special day, so instead, here are some kick-ass pumpkin carvings. I'm starting off with Baldur's Gate 3, and the mum of Reddit user Real Stibby, who is evidently a fan of the game, has turned her pumpkins into a baby owlbear. And of course Karlach. The next one's something Johnny Silverhand would be proud of. It's the samurai logo from Cyberpunk 2077, and it's pretty spot on. That's from ArtsTES Gamer. Moving on, and we'll take whatever we can get while we wait for Hades 2. So here's Melanoe in pumpkin form. Carved by Redditor Ryleon, it's kinda spooky, kinda uncanny, and kinda great. Ryleon doesn't stop there, however. They're also a fan of Arcane and made this wonderful carving of Silco, GINX and Vi. Bonus points for just how good the smoke looks. How on earth you do that on a pumpkin, I have no idea. And that's the show. Hit us up with a like and subscribe, and why not leave a comment or two? If you don't know what to say, just use ChatGPT. Apparently no one cares about quality anymore. Check out yesterday's video around here. Have a very spooky Halloween, and we'll see you tomorrow.